morning. This is Lance Kenmore with the Kenmore team, and I'd like to welcome you to this week's edition of the Tri-Cities Real Estate Update. You can contact me, Lance Kenmore, anytime direct on my cell phone at 727-8977, or visit us on the web at kenmoreteam.com. Once again, I always like to thank John at the station for working to make this show happen. Mr. John McKay, how you doing during COVID update number 8?
Well, like you said last week, every week that goes by, remarkable, changes happen. Last 7 days have been busy.
Yes, 100% correct. And that has remained constant. Like now, now people, no one seems to know what phase they're in. And some people are choosing their own phases, I've noticed.
That would be me.
Okay, which I got to tell you, if we want to jump right into the local industry and what happens and get a little bit messy about it, we can. And so part of that is what's happening in these phases and what is being mandated versus what people are doing. So
there's a lot of confusion regardless of your industry.
Huge amount of confusion. And so I can give you just a prime example of that. Unfortunately, this is why I'm tired and have more gray hairs, is because I have lots of examples of the type of stuff that is happening. But here's a great example. We had a situation earlier this week where we had a home inspection. Pretty typical. We represent the seller. Seller sells the home. We've been following the protocols that we are still under by the governor's mandate. One person in the home at a time with the agent. And we have a home inspection. The seller knows what these protocols are. The other agent should know what the protocols are. In this situation, I believe they were even had a position of authority at the company, and show up for the home inspection with the home inspector. Agent's there to let the home inspector in. All of a sudden, the seller notices on their Ring doorbell that there are other people there with the home inspector, the buyer. And then not only is the buyer there for the home inspection, but somebody in the buyer's family is there with the home inspection. So now you have a number of people inside the home. Now,
under normal circumstances, that's not allowed, is it?
So under normal circumstances, that is allowed. So you set up with the other agent. As long as the other agent's there, they're responsible for letting the home inspector and the buyer in. And they do their home inspection, and no big deal. There's an agent there that has authority over the control of that house. Now, in this situation, what's happening is you're violating the mandates that have come down from the governor's office of how many people should be in the house. So that's a tough situation. So you've got to call that other agent and say, hey, just curious, why are you choosing to not follow the governor mandates? And so then we're having a conversation about, hey, we're monitoring what's going on there. And that agent, believes, and I'm not going to say yes or no to what they believe, because that's not the situation we're dealing with. That agent is like, you know what, this is all a bunch of garbage. Nobody has been sick that is in the house. We're not sick, blah, blah, blah. You go through that whole rigmarole with them. And what you've got is they're like, hey, I didn't think it was a big deal. Well, it is a big deal because our seller's trying to follow those mandates. We also don't want the Department of Licensing to come and shut us down for not following those.
Because if an inspector does show up, and I've heard they tend to show up randomly.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
So that's tough, right? Now, I get it. That buyer wants to see that house. In this situation, they didn't want to leave the other person in the car. But regardless of that being the case, other arrangements in that situation could have been made. Now, a lot of people are saying, to heck with it. I'm not following that. I'm not going by that. So, we've got some conflict going on out there, and it's no different in our industry than any other industry. Jump on Facebook for 10 minutes and go to Instagram and see. I've seen the pictures. You see the people at Lowe's and Home Depot, and they're not 6 feet apart, and half of them aren't wearing masks, and there's nothing that says you have to, but, there is. Complicated, I understand. The hard part about our industry is we bring that into someone's personal home. So we have a higher standard level of care that I think we're operating on, and some of the industry is choosing not to operate that way. So I do implore you, if your agent gives you a situation and tells you about something that is a standard, I don't care what firm you're at, who your real estate agent is in Tri-Cities, if they let you know that these are the rules that we're following, that we are required to be following right now, please take a look at that list. And please try not to push your agent to go beyond the scope of what's allowed right now. Because I don't want to get into a situation where people are, having licensing issues because of it, or worse, we're shut back down, because we're not following that. Now, do I agree or disagree with what has been done? There's not a long enough radio show for that topic, so we're just going to bypass that for sure. But This is how we're operating, and so this is what the cooperation that we're looking for to continue to be operating, because there's a big housing shortage issue right now going on. We want to sell as many as possible, list as many as possible, and help fulfill that need for the community.
Yes.
So now that you have caused me to rant for 5 minutes of my intro, I'm going to try to get back on track with my actual intro. So real quick, I do like to start off with a celebrity real estate house.
Yes.
Now, this one, there's a show called Flip or Flop.
I've heard of that.
If you have a significant other, you watch HGTV. And I'm not saying female or male. I'm saying we probably watch that because of me at my house. And but it's industry research for me. But there's a show, Flip or Flop, and there was a couple that was on that show, Tarek, I think is how you say it, Tarek and Christina. So Tarek El Moussa sold his Costa Mesa house for $2.7 million. Now, you might have seen Tarek. He runs a couple different shows, and he's flipped over 500 houses in his career. So I think he knows a little bit about staging and selling. Beautiful home in Costa Mesa. What I thought that was interesting about it, though, is it wasn't a flip that he had done. This was a new construction farmhouse style house, but similar reasons. Him and Christina had broke up a number of years ago. Why do people sell? He has a new significant other. And she just happens to be a real estate agent on another show on HGTV.
Wow.
So I think splitting time between two houses was not working like they thought it was. And so new relationships, great reason to move.
Yes.
And so he is not immune from the same reasons why people sell. So that is our crazy celebrity story. Now back to real estate facts. What's going on in the nation? What's going on in the housing market? I wanted to get to some of those numbers and get that out for people. I was very fortunate enough yesterday I was able to sit down and be on a call with Mortgage Bankers Association's chief economist, Michael Fratantoni. And it was a really, really interesting call to look at what's going on nationally and how that's affecting mortgages and mortgage rates. So he's an economist, right? So a lot of statistics, but I took some notes of some of the big ones that stuck out for me. And the biggest one that we're looking at is, it's really, really interesting. There is what is called a U6 measure that the Department of Labor and Industries uses. And that's a little different. The U6 measure is a little different than just straight unemployment, because what that does is that takes into account what they call underemployment, which is the number of people that are working half-time that would also be willing to work full-time but can't find work right now. So it's pretty scary when you look at that number. You see that the U6 measure is at roughly, that is 22.8%.
Wow.
Of unemployed, and underemployment. And that is the largest number that measure has seen in years. And so, and potentially since, a last, obviously, recession. The the craziness about what we've gone through is the speed of what has happened and kind of the differences of what we're looking at. So when you look at the charts and the graphs, and I'm sure most people have seen those, the speed that we went from under 5% unemployment to then 3.2 million claims. And then finally, we've started to see that was a weekly number that we jumped up. 3.2 million claims weekly. Finally, that number started to drop last week, and it was back down to 2.9. But when you look at those numbers, they're just staggering to what's going on in the economy. So then you look and see, like, well, how's that going to relate over to housing? So one of the things that happened, obviously, is the Fed early on lowered the Fed funds rate to 0. So it was interesting to go through and see his slides and see his presentation. He expects that Fed funds rate to stay at 0 based upon what they're saying through the beginning of 2022. The reason so is they have committed to keeping that Fed funds rate low until we are back at the same unemployment number that we saw before. So they're estimating that it'll take us until the end of 2021 next year, the beginning of 2022, before we see the full recovery.
Wow.
So it's kind of interesting to see that charted out and to look at what was happening. Also, some other things he pointed out significant. 3.4% as the 30-year mortgage average that they were looking at last month. Okay, we've seen historical lows. So the interesting thing about that is, to have a housing recovery, generally you've got to have high demand, lower interest rates, and available inventory. The problem that we have right now is we've got the low rates. They've done their job in that situation. We've got the low rates. Demand is probably not going to come back until we have late phase 2 and phase 3 openings in the state of Washington. Just because the movement and the traffic that we can have, it's going to take us a while to get back to what that normal looks like, to where we can have open houses. We can have brokers opens and have a lot of people come through. Right now, those activities are highly, highly restricted, and so the demand's not back there yet. Another really, really interesting fact about what's going on in housing is the 28-year-old demographic. That millennial demographic right now. So right now, there is 4.7 million 28-year-olds in the United States. Huge number. We talked last year about the millennials driving purchasing right now. 32 to 33 is the age now that we have the highest demand for first-time home buyers from that generation.
Wow.
So they're peaking in the age group 32 to 33. Like I said, we have a huge grouping right now of millennials that is moving into that age range. And so they expect first-time home buyers to drive this recovery. So the Economist is saying it's a huge percentage of people in that range that will drive the recovery. What are we going to need to have happen? Them be able to get loans, have savings for the down payments, have the liquidity in the credit markets to have access to loans. Right now, that's a struggle. A lot of lenders have raised their credit requirements above what they were doing last year. And because of those additional overlays, less people can qualify for that FHA mortgage and what's happening there. Also, the mortgage industry still, the updated numbers that I got yesterday, total number of loans in forbearance in the United States has now jumped to 8%. So it was before COVID less than 1%.
Wow.
So we've seen 8% of mortgages now in some type of forbearance, and FHA mortgages, those borrowers probably most affected by what's gone on in COVID, That number is at 11% now. So it's real. It's out there. It's happening. People have forbearance in their mortgages. That's affecting the liquidity of the credit market and the ability of those people to do loans. So we're staying in very, very close contact with our local lenders as the programs, what's reopening, what's filling this demand. My agents are out there talking to those lenders every couple of days, getting those updates so that when we get a borrower in this price range that wants to buy and help drive the recovery, we're going to be ready to help you get you to the right lender. And it might not be the one we were using 3 or 4 weeks ago because their overreaching programs might have changed. So that's what's happening from an economic standpoint with what's going on in the housing market. When we come back from the break, I've got some new inventory to go over with my pick 3 and a little bit on the topic of the psychology of buying. Because we all know, McKay, COVID is causing psychological problems. I think with you too.
Oh, yes.
All right. Talk to you after the break.
Right here on News Talk 870.
Welcome back to the Tri-Cities Real Estate Update. Like it's been the last couple of weeks, inventory continues to be the struggle. Low inventory. Builders haven't been able to get the new houses online as fast as they were pre-COVID. And a lot of people have held off putting their home on the market. A recent survey by National Association of Realtors said 60% of sellers have decided to delay the process.
Wow.
And, you know, they have concerns. What are we dealing with? Do we really want a lot of additional people in our home right now? Now, we have virtual tours and we have ways to minimize that. But it doesn't, much like my introduction at the beginning of the show about the home inspection, even with what we do to minimize it, it doesn't take it to zero. And so a lot of people are like, hey, let's wait a little bit. So we have an inventory shortage. There was a house that we were competing on this week in the Tri-Cities here that had 12 offers on the house. And so we had to write a super competitive offer. Multiple stories of other homes having 4 offers, 5 offers in the last week. So the good stuff that is hitting the market right now, the benefit to those sellers that are maybe in your opinion or someone's opinion taking a little additional risk, but minimizing and being as safe as they possibly can. The reward they're seeing is some increased amount of offers and multiple offer situation.
Well, you'd mentioned before in the recovery and the millennials thing, one of the things that you said that was necessary for a recovery was inventory.
Absolutely. And that is the biggest linchpin in what we're seeing in the recovery and what's going to happen over the course of the next couple months.
Especially here.
And so we're already seeing little things happen, events, I will not say exactly what they are, but fall events that happen around Tri-Cities and stuff. We've already seen issues with scheduling because we had construction schedules that have been massively thrown off.
Oh, yeah.
And so there's things happening to where we're having to make changes or change our direction of what we were going to do, or maybe not launch that subdivision when we thought we would. So inventory is going to be key. Obviously, we have a super strong, awesome HBA here. They're just working their tails off to help lobby, get those things open. Our builders, the majority of them have their COVID safety plans in place and they're back there working. But it's gonna. We had a problem before COVID with inventory.
Yeah.
Now we have a little additional problem, but we are doing our part to make that shortage go away. So we have some new listings. My pick 3 this week, and I'm super excited about this. 2694 Eagle Watch Loop in Kennewick. This is an absolutely gorgeous 4-bedroom, 3-bath Horn Rapids home. It has an awesome layout, lots lots of upgrades, granite counters throughout, lots of style. This has the white kitchen cabinets, so you get that modern kind of farmhouse look with the white cabinets. Gorgeous, gorgeous. Granite counters, full tile backsplash, stainless steel appliances. And then you've got the split bedroom layout, private master retreat. So it's got an awesome walk-through closet, which is just super cool. And I don't know how these people keep it so clean. When I saw the pictures of the closet, I was like, you got to be kidding me. That can't be real life. So that, for me, that's one of those little indicators of how well-maintained people keep a home. Upstairs, you've got a family room, a 4th bedroom, and a 3/4 bath. Great entertainment flex space, and super cool layout. And, out at Horn Rapids, for the people that haven't been out there, last year they opened up a second entrance. So it used to be kind of windy and you had to get through there, and maybe not as convenient to get to the houses in the back. Boom. Now you hit that second entrance right there, kind of really opened up Horn Rapids. And when, right now, if you've seen the construction going on out there, new mini market coming on the corner out there. So you're finally getting some services out there that make it a great place to live. So $26.94 Eagle Watch Loop. And that price point is coming in $374,900. Great home for that price point. Pick number 2. Do you need a little bit of land to raise your own beef during the quarantine?
Ooh.
Here's a place where I think it's possible. 98407 East Reata Road. This is an awesome West Kennewick location on over an acre. So this is a 1-level, 1486 square foot, 3-bedroom, 2-bath home, plus a large shop with a detached garage, laminate wood flooring, new carpet in the living areas and bedrooms. This is a super cool property. It's really hard to find a 3-bed, 2-bath rambler on over an acre with a shop. And that's coming in at $325,000.
Wow.
Yeah, you're not going to find all of that for that price point. So 98407 East Reata Road in Kennewick. And then pick number 3, we talked about builders getting back to work. So I picked up a new construction, under construction, ambiance homes. This is 4417 Webster Court near the Yokes in West Richland there off of Bombing Range. Great location. This is their Sherwood plan, which is a 4-bedroom, 3-bath, just under 3,000 square feet. Large lot, great location, super awesome views, and this is coming in at $556,900, brand new construction.
Ooh.
Great property. So that's my pick 3. We've got some amazing options out there with the pick 3, and new inventory coming online all the time. My listing agents, like I said, as we move to our next phases with the reopening, we're starting to see an uptick in calls. There's a lot of new inventory coming on. So if you've got something specific you've been looking for, go to kenmoreteam.com, reach out, shoot us a message. We can put you on our list, because as these new homes come on and are starting to become available, we're expecting a large amount of demand in that case. And so if you're in multiple offers, that's likely selling in the first day or 2. We can put you on a watch list, let you know when those are coming, get you into those homes so that you can be in a position to compete, instead of 2 days later saying, what the heck happened over the weekend? I didn't even get a chance to see it. So go to kenmoreteam.com, shoot us a message. We'd love to help you out with that. So one of the things that happened this week is I ran into a friend that is a psychologist, and I said, I asked him, I said, hey, how's things going for you? Don't worry, folks, we were 6 feet apart when we were talking. And so I said, hey, how's things going? I imagine, were you affected during the slowdown? And, he said, actually not at all. He's like, psychology has been just as busy as it was before. We were essential. Obviously, if there's something going on, it doesn't just stop because there's a shutdown. But him and I always talk a little bit about the psychology of the selling and buying process. And so I thought a little bit about that, and I said, gosh, I'm going to go do a little bit of research on that. I'm experiencing it more than ever with both our sellers and our buyers. Is the psychology of selling and buying is more important than ever during this crisis. And so the number one thing, I went back and looked at a study a company called CoreLogic had done. And the number one thing that came up is when someone is buying or selling a house is the emotional part of buying and selling. And so a lot of that comes down to controlling those emotions in the process. So one of the things that you can do to be in the proper mindset for that is kind of set your non-negotiables. Your price, like let's say it's price, location, number of rooms. Set your non-negotiables, because what happens when you go to look is, let's say you're looking for a 4-bedroom. That's a non-negotiable because I've realized during COVID, I need that 4th bedroom for a home office. Non-negotiable. But you walk into a 3-bedroom and it looks exactly like the houses I see on HGTV. It feels just amazing. It's so pretty, McKay. And I can just see my family here, but it doesn't have your non-negotiables. You have to go back to those non-negotiables and say, what part of this is emotions and what part of this is what I actually need in this home search? So the number one thing I wrote down in that psychology is set your non-negotiables to prevent your emotions from getting out of check in that buying process.
It's kind of like doing a shopping list before you go grocery shopping, especially if you're hungry.
You're 100% correct, because if I just say I'm going to stop in on my way home because we needed 1 or 2 things, and that's say at 6:30 or 7 at night, McKay, how come that stop in to get potatoes or bananas, I leave with Oreos and an extra bottle of wine that I probably didn't need because Yokes is so good about putting that right in front of me. So you're right. Yeah, like having that list of like, here's what I'm getting in, I'm getting out type of thing. Exactly. Very good analogy there. The second thing that I wrote down was perceived value in the psychology of buying. So a lot of times people will go in and they'll see a house that maybe has their non-negotiables, but it has a pink bedroom or it has a lime green bedroom.
Ooh.
And so the perceived value of that is huge because they don't like it per se. And now we go back to that emotional thing. But really, what's going on there is probably $150 to $200 paint job. So you go back to that negotiables and you say, gosh, this has all of your non-negotiables. You're looking at that green and pink bedroom as a massive perceived value of negative. And in your mind, you automatically might say, gosh, that's a $5,000, $8,000 negative, when really that's a perception and it's really a $200 issue.
Or you could do it yourself.
You could do it yourself. Now, sellers listening to this, take note, because I just gave you a little sell tip that there's a $200 to $300 issue that's probably showing up in buyers' minds, but the psychology of it as a $5,000 to $8,000 issue. So that's huge. Next thing that I wrote down that's really big in the psychology of buying and selling, and this is a tip for sellers out there, especially as we're coming into May, June, July. Notice that the lawn is growing way faster than you thought.
Yes.
And so one of the things that we tell our sellers is cut the grass more frequently during this selling time. If you were doing it once a week, go to twice a week. It's amazing what, number one, the smell of that does, especially if you have a showing later that afternoon. And number two, the first impression. There's been a lot of books and studies done. I know Princeton's done a lot. That first impressions can happen in about 1/10 of a second.
Wow.
when you meet somebody. It's the exact same thing when you meet your perfect house. So a lot of times we talk about curb appeal and doing this, but I wanted to get a little more specific with it to the actual increasing the frequency of cutting the grass. It's that smell, if you can do it before a buyer shows up, that's going to have an effect on them, especially this time of year. The look of the maintenance when they pull up, that's going to have a big effect on it. So that is a huge one. And then the last one that I'm going to point out on the psychology of selling and buying a house is the lifestyle options. Especially with what we've been through right now, people are looking, what is it actually like to live in this house and be in it way more than I was before? Does it provide you the outdoor lifestyle that you wanted? Does it provide you the garden area that you wanted? Do you have that? Do you wish you had that home office that you bypassed and went for a 3-bedroom instead of a 4? So look at the lifestyle options as the last piece of that psychology of purchasing when you're going through, like we talked about, the emotions, and you're going through your non-negotiables. Also look at what is it like to live in this house. So these are the type of items that we're bringing to the forefront of and dealing and counseling with our buyers that they're going through right now, and then also talking to our sellers about how you can best position to take advantage of those psychological factors when you're putting the house on the market. That is what is happening right now in Tri-Cities real estate. Those are some of the factors that we are taking into account during COVID. And we're super excited because a lot more calls coming in, a lot more inventory that's going to be coming on the market in the next 3 weeks. So we're excited to get that to the market, help our clients get through that sales process, and kind of pick up the pace here a little bit so that we can make up for some of that ground that we lost in the last 2 months. One thing, though, you can be certain of is we will be right back here next week.
Right here on News Talk 870.